Hi, this is Jeff Whittle from the band Tiles, and you're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com. Today we're on location in East Point, Michigan with none other than Jeff Whittle. What's happening, Jeff?
Oh, busy times. Playing, recording, getting ready for our upcoming release, and yeah, good times.
Okay, well, hey, we want to hear all about that. You play with a great band called Tiles, and I've seen your band perform. I did not realize you had been together for as long as you had. But I want to come to that in a minute. But let's go back to the early days. You are born and raised in the Metro Detroit area. So tell me, I'm interested to hear about your musical upbringing. Do you come from a musical family? You have brothers and sisters who played? Were your parents into it? Were there records playing around the house? Did your parents take you to concerts? You know, what was your musical upbringing like as far as all of those kinds of things go?
Well, when I was a kid, my dad is still today an audiophile, loves stereos and all that. And
he must be happy about the resurgence in vinyl then, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah. Oh, and back in the day, he had a whole tube set up, and he was very into it. And but beyond that, I mean, nobody played. He loved music, loved just everything about it, but he just never played, and I don't know why. So we just grew up listening, and me and my younger brother really had the drive to learn, and that happened a little later on in life, but not right away. We had a piano for a little bit of time that my older brother played, but he didn't stick with it, and I think because he didn't stick with it, they jettisoned the piano. And I still to this day wish they would have kept that. But it wasn't until later on, when I was 15 or 16, a really weird thing happened. A friend of mine had gotten a bass for Christmas, and when he picked it up left-handed, and he's right-handed. I'm left-handed, and when I picked it up right-handed. And I used to just pick it up, and I didn't know that much about bass other than you did this, and you had to match them up. And so obviously my dominant hand's my fretting hand, and I don't know. I could physically do. I didn't know what I was doing, but I could move around, and I just started asking guitar players to show me things. And the next Christmas, I begged and pleaded and I got a bass. I didn't have an amp, but I did have a bass, a Westbury, and that was it. That's how it started. And my brother got a drum set, and that was it. That's how we started. And he didn't need an amp.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure your parents were happy with his choice of the drums. But once you discovered the bass, though, did you find yourself listening to the radio a little differently than you had before? Were you picking out the bass parts? Were there some bass players that you considered influences at the time that you wanted to emulate? Anybody stand out?
Paul McCartney.
Because he's a lefty and you're a lefty, right?
And it was funny. I never realized that until after I'd picked up that, I started hey, Jimi Hendrix played upside down, and Paul McCartney, and I've asked a couple of doctors, I only do a couple things right-handed. I golf and play bass. Why that is, no doctor's been able to tell me the answer to that, so I don't know. But
John Patitucci I've known for about 30 years, and one recent interview I had with him, I found out that he is left-handed. And I never knew that, which surprised me quite a bit.
And he's a monster.
Sure is.
But
Jimmy Haslip is another one who plays.
Oh yeah, yep. And I'm blanking on the bass player right now. He did the tour with Steve Hackett. He plays left hand, but he never reversed the strings around either. Oh. That was really cool to watch because he was playing 12-string guitar as well and doing all the guitar chords.
Like a freak.
Yeah, it was so, and he was spot on all those parts, but those old Genesis songs. But
once you got into it though, how did your career get rolling?
Well, and that was it. Me and my brother played, and then I got really, really lucky. When I was my junior and senior year in high school, I went to this little tiny school, and they actually offered a rock band. And the two teachers that ran it, I went in there knowing bunches of parts of songs. Never really, me and my brother would write stuff, but we didn't play. We played parts of songs off the radio. We didn't know full songs yet. And when I got there, by the time I left, we started out by playing like Wooly Bully, We Got to Get Out of This Place, And the amazing thing is when I left there, we had actually gone to other schools and played dances, and the growth during that time was just, it was amazing. Those the two teachers, Bill and Jim, were amazing. They were so patient with us, and we were doing Zeppelin and Pink Floyd when I left there.
Let's talk about Tiles. I don't know how much of a gap there was between what you're talking about and Tiles, but you've done so much with that group, and I can't believe how long you've been around. And you've got 5, soon to be 6 albums, and some pretty high-profile guest artists on your records, and Mike Portnoy and Mike Stern, right, and Adam Holtzman, and Ian Anderson. Quite a cross section. But tell me about the band.
Well, actually, right after I graduated high school, I started a lesson with Kevin Chown, and I was with Kevin for a couple of years. And what happened was about a year and a half in, Kevin changed everything about me. I went in there. I had a desire to. I wasn't very good. I was maybe competent, and I went to him with all the desire. I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn to read. I wanted to know, like, what is it about the bass? And Kevin worked with me, and man, it just exploded. And what happened was about a year and a half into my lesson, he started talking about this band he was working with. He got hired as a studio bass player. The band didn't have, they had songs all done, but they didn't have a bass player. And it ended up being what was going to become Tiles. So on the first Tiles record, that actually all Kevin's bass. Kevin did all the bass, and he also co-produced that album. And when they were done recording the bass parts, they were talking to him about possibilities of different bass players, and he recommended me. I don't know, my check must have cleared. And that was it. That's how I met those guys.
One of the things that attracted me to your playing was not just the band and the music and your bass playing, but it was the kind of bass that you were playing. And looks like there's a Ken Smith bass over there. I know you've been playing Ken Smith basses and using Ken Smith strings for a long time. Why is that?
I first tried Ken Smith bass strings with Kevin when I was taking lessons with him, and I had used a ton of different strings before then, and was never completely satisfied. And the first time I put on the Ken Smith strings, I've never changed. I've tried other people's basses and strings.
You never changed the strings since you put them on?
Oh yeah, they sound like flat walls now. I know
what you mean.
I don't know. There's just the way that they feel underneath my fingers, and the response, and how lively they sound. I loved them.
Well, tell me a little bit more about the bass itself. I know the strings are great. You use the strings, but tell me what you love about the bass. I love them too.
Yeah, there's no sound I can't get out of this. That's the first thing, and just the craftsmanship. I have not broken a string since I've used Ken Smith strings. I probably might have just jinxed myself. I hope I did. But it's the sound that it feels so good around my shoulder, and just the way that the neck sits in my palm. I don't know. I've played a lot of different basses, and I always come back to this. I jokingly call it the Maserati of basses, for me anyways. The actual active electronics, when you move one of the knobs, you actually hear the difference, even at the minutest, so you can dial in anything that you want, and I just, it's so consistent. It's a very, very consistent bass. Like I said, things stays in tune. I sometimes wonder if I could drop it off a cliff and if it would still, I would never do that. But
it's funny you should mention that. I just interviewed Ricky Miner, and I think he used that same word, or he was describing the same concept. It's consistent all the way up and down. Ken Smith basses are incredible. Yeah. How about the future, Jeff? What else would you like to do? I know you've got the new record, and you've been working on it for a couple of years, so hopefully you'll be able to sit down for a minute, or maybe there's a tour in store to promote the record. But I mean, in general, what else would you like to do in the future that you haven't accomplished yet outside of Tiles?
Outside of Tiles, man, I currently work in education, so I would probably I would probably be doing something more in the lines of education or social work, something like that. If I wasn't in tiles, but man, I would be very sad if that wasn't in my life.
Well, keep doing what you're doing, and we will continue to enjoy it. Jeff Whittle, congratulations on the long-running success of Tiles. The new record sounds very exciting. The title, did I ask you the title of the new record? What is the new record called?
The new album is called Pretending to Run, and it's a double disc set. And it'll be out late March. I think people are really going to like it.
Pretending to Run by Tiles. All right, Jeff Whittle, congratulations. I am John Liebman on location in East Point, Michigan with Jeff Whittle. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.